what in the was episode 5?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
like we were saying before, with each episode, like we got a courtroom drama, we got this, we got that. Now it's like we got a heist movie thrown into the season here. A complete fucking bottle episode that, like, we talk about other things having no bearing on the overall story. This was like in a league of its own in terms of having legitimately no
yeah,
fucking connection or weight or anything of added anything of value to this season.
yeah. It was funny with this one because I was along for the ride. Like while the episode was taking place, I was like, yeah, this is a good episode. Like this is intriguing. It's got me gripped. I'm on the edge of my seat. It wasn't till like the end of the episode, or maybe even after we had watched it, that I was like, what in the fuck? Why did like what a complete waste of our time?
I was waiting for some revelation how this was had any sort of connection to the overall story,
Yeah,
but as far as I can tell, it did not
it
at all.
doesn't matter.
It was purely like fan service with Kamala Khan's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Legitimately, the only positive I can take out of that episode was like the small fight sequence
In
in
the
a stairwell
stairwell.
again. Instead of hallways, they're doing stairwells now, I guess.
Yeah,
But yeah, when he's fighting that guy and incapacitating him while on
catches
the
the
ground and
shotgun.
catches the shotgun while it's falling to not make any noise.
Yeah,
That was sick. But that's, if I'm racking my brains, that might be the only positive I can take away from that episode whatsoever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a shame that I don't know where that came from. I don't know what they were. It's just
Just
setting this
buying
cycle
time,
of
or
like one episode important, next episode not important, next episode important, next episode not important.
mm-hmm. But why do you do that with, what was this, 7 episodes,
Nine.
9 episodes? Like, why? Why do you do that if you
Just
have
make
limited time? Why are
six
you
or eight.
doing episode 5 that just is like a complete hand wave? Like, let's just put some filler in here.
Yeah.
Like, it's laughable how bad that was
Yeah, and like
in terms of
how.
the overall story.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. They did, like, the heist of it, I guess. Like, it was like
yeah. It's a fun
kind of
episode,
fun,
but
but
when you're writing this, I get that you're making it a fun episode, but did you really not consider what the viewer is thinking watching this? Like how do you not have that lens of like, oh yeah, when this is put together on screen, it doesn't actually make any sense. Like in sequence, it doesn't fit with
no, when it's pieced
the rest of
together at
what we're
this
doing.
point in the story, it's like, what are we doing
Yeah.
here?
It was just
What
like,
am I
hey, it's
watching?
St. Patrick's Day. Let's do an Irish fucking heist.
Yeah.
It's like I who cares? I'm Irish and I don't even fucking care.
I think I was only like giddy at the start because it was reminding me of like the Joker heist at the beginning of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it just, that feeling went away pretty quick, I guess, when I was trying to understand what they were going for with it
Yeah.
and just not getting any concrete answer. So again, with the time wasting, this one being probably the biggest example, right? Like, you've
Oh,
just used an
for
entire
sure.
episode
This
to
was
waste my time.
40, 50 minutes, maybe closer to an hour of a completely useless story and
Yeah,
concept. And like the
unbelievable.
fact that Matt was going to the bank in the first place for the loan is never again touched upon or brought up. It's never alluded to that they're, in such desperate need for money that they're going to the bank to ask for a loan. Like, this isn't, you have not developed this at all. There's no reason for him to even step into the bank other than to make a fucking
Let
withdrawal.
alone a whole episode
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, pretty embarrassing, and
Yeah.
just, we
Just a waste of the
definitely
viewer's
like
time.
felt hopeless after this episode in terms of like the quality of this show.
I guess, yeah, this really did mark the downfall. I think the first couple episodes we were still bought in. The next couple episodes we were starting to get a little skeptical, and then this one was just the nail in the coffin of like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this isn't what we thought it was going to be. This isn't what it could have been or should have been.
No, they've completely lost us at this point. Episode 6 was definitely, I thought, better than episode 5. Like,
Yeah.
the bar wasn't set very high, but I did like the parallels between Matt and Fisk this episode as they kind of take on their respective foes or confront their respective enemies in this episode, with Matt's being Muse and Fisk's being Adam, Vanessa's former lover.
Mm-hmm.
Just, they're both taking their rage out on the two guys and having a hard fought battle. And they both decide to spare the two victims, but for much different reasons, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for Matt's more of an obvious reason, like he's the hero, and there's his priority is saving Hector's daughter's life, not murdering another, committing another murder.
Yeah.
Whereas Fisk, he's wrestling with like his,
Do I kill this guy?
yeah, like in the whole conversation with Vanessa about like he's trying to be a changed man and learn forgiveness and stuff. And in that moment, I guess he's probably wrestling with that and comes to the conclusion that, to if I'm on the road of forgiveness, then I gotta spare this guy. But it's probably against his inner nature, right? His
Yeah.
gut in that moment, I'm sure, is telling him to just snuff this guy out.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit in him. There's enough of that conversation with Vanessa in him, I guess, to motivate him to leave him for now.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we don't get a whole lot of, Muse in this episode comes out of nowhere a bit. Like, it's been, a couple episodes since we've heard his name, even really. Like,
It's sort of like we had Muse to like pick back up, especially
yeah,
after episode 5, where it's like a complete bottle episode, no mention whatsoever. And then the one before that, again, like you said, not much Muse. It's like, oh shit, yeah, we gotta finish up this
yeah,
thread.
yeah. It's it's so transparent that it seems like that's, maybe I shouldn't say it's transparent because I don't know 100% that that's what happened, but that's all I can really see.
And just a predictable set of circumstances to bring him back into the
Yeah,
loop too, right? Like Hector's daughter, this 14-year-old, is he's killed 60 victims and he has like a little hideout base thing.
yeah,
And this 14-year-old is telling Matt, like, I found out like his potential location or the radius of like his operating area. No police resources in the span of 60 victims has like narrowed down where this guy could have
mm-hmm,
been. And then, of course, this 14-year, oh, yeah, I'll take this on my own, like get justice for my dad, go walk into this trap.
mm-hmm,
And damsel in distress type of situation, Matt, has to use his, or be forced into donning the costume and coming to terms with that and taking down. Yeah, it was very contrived.
yeah. Very forced events
Mm-hmm.
in this one, just playing catch up with.
Just for the sake of putting the two at odds again, Matt and Muse.
Yeah,
It's sort of just like, hey, remember this guy who we were like talking about a couple episodes ago? Like
he's still
he's still
around.
here, he's still
Yeah,
around. But yeah, I mean, overall, I wasn't crazy about this episode either. To be honest, there wasn't a whole lot in it that I was. Again, some of the fight choreography and stuff was cool. But if that's the only positive coming out of an episode and the story just falls flat, it's like that's not enough to.
it's not a good show.
No,
No.
just brutal writing once again.
So episode 7, obviously we dispatch with Muse.
Yeah, we see the tie up of his story, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Which is very quick and abrupt and
Underwhelming.
happens in practically one conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a yeah, like what an anticlimactic, underwhelming, useless, indifferent character that was.
It's really the only opportunity we get to understand why he's doing what he's doing, and it feels like they just gloss over it and chalk it up to like his parents were tough on him and expected a lot. And how does that track that? Okay, that make sense then that he's like
Mm-hmm.
decides to murder 60
Yeah, just that
people and
one
drain them
thing.
of blood? Like, it was the only, like, you could have framed it in a way where you had some lead up in previous episodes to flesh out these therapy sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Not only does it give some context to his character, but also makes us feel more connected to the therapist, and then more weight to Matt's relationship with her too. So yeah, I don't know why, like episode 5, like why the fuck did you have that heist episode? Why didn't you have like a more like fleshed out version of who the fuck Muse is, and
Yeah,
what why he's in the position he's in,
yeah.
and what that means for overall, right? Like have that, like have some weight to the story, instead of the only weight to the story was just the connection between the therapist and Matt, and the connection between Muse and Matt, like the just that common thread between them, right? There wasn't, it just felt cheap, or
Mm-hmm.
it didn't give justice to like why this character was a deliberate choice to add into the season. Muse,
Yeah.
like why even use them?
Yeah, like everything else with the show, I guess it's just to fill time. But like, what do you don't have any time to waste when you can't tell it. Like if everything's just there to fill time, then you haven't made anything.
Yeah, it felt like they were just biding time to like.
It's another episode like the heist one that it's like, well, we have another couple episodes to work with, so we gotta, you know, run out the clock a bit.
I did like the Vanessa Fisk stuff in this episode because it sort of was more true to what we were saying about earlier about these, like, they both have their own interests in terms of how the city should be working under their thumb.
Mm-hmm.
And we do see some underhanded behavior with Vanessa kind of sending an assassin to get Fisk. So it's, that was more interesting to me than anything to do with Muse,
Mm-hmm.
and way more interesting than them sitting down in a marriage counseling session. Like I want to see a little bit of this
Yeah,
underhanded backstabbing, but you know, they're still. Anyways,
yeah. Like there's not a whole lot to say about that episode other than just why. What's the point? Another setup episode with episode 8
yep.
doesn't really have a whole lot of substance,
It was
but
better though,
it was
I thought,
better.
than like the 3 previous episodes by a mile.
Yes, I agree with
It
that.
was much more on track of like where we're supposed to be story wise,
Yeah.
in like the main, the A story.
Mm-hmm.
We've dealt with like this shitty bottle episode. We've dealt with Muse, who has no bearing on the rest of the story. Apparently, it's just a way to waste time. And now we're like finally back in like the position we want to be in story wise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just like big decisions made in this episode by Matt, right? Like he has to come to terms. I mean, the biggest being like not necessarily sacrificing himself to save Fisk, but there was, if the bullet is hits the right spot, then that could have been a fatal shot that
Mm-hmm.
he jumped in the way for.
Yep.
So that's pretty telling. Like that's a huge moment in Matt and Fisk's relationship,
Relationship. Yeah.
and one that definitely says a lot about Matt at this point, especially given his frustration with Fisk
Mm-hmm.
and knowing what he's up to and playing this long con. Yet he's still, in the heat of the moment, he's willing to put himself in harm's way for the man he hates most in the world.
Yeah.
So that was like impactful for his character, as a character moment for me, which helps elevate this episode relative to previous ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you there. Um, the obvious problem being that happens in like the last 5 minutes of the episode,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest of it is just
I mean, we're like treading back with Bullseye, I guess, just
yeah, like
trying to justify his big moment at the end of this episode by giving him and Matt some stuff to do in that room in the prison there
yeah.
where they confront each other. But it was just sort of the impetus to give Bullseye motivation to come back around at the end of the episode and try to pop a shot into Fisk.
Yeah.
Because he probably feels like he's been tossed aside too by him, right? Like he did what he needed to do on not Fisk's orders. Like it's revealed to Matt as well as the viewer, I guess, that Vanessa was actually responsible for sicking Bullseye on Foggy and the three of them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that I wouldn't say that was very predictable. Like I was happy to see that they went that route instead of it just being Fisk all along.
I mean, it is somewhat predictable, right? Because Fisk wasn't
There was a
around.
void, yeah,
Yeah,
where
like
she was top dog.
she was in charge. Yeah, so it is kind of. It is kind of like a. Are you stupid, Matt?
But I
Like
guess it's just sort of like I wasn't sure before last episode, or sorry, when does Vanessa decide to kill Adam? Was it this episode,
that
episode
was
8, or the previous episode?
this episode. Yeah, that was the
I
beginning
think
of
that
this
was the
episode.
first indication where it's like, okay, Vanessa is like willing to make some hard decisions here, not only like just to keep the business running and the illegal aspects of moving money around and stuff. Like she's like gonna get her hands dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that maybe we weren't as sure of before that scene where she fires the kill shot into Adam. So this was like helping to reinforce that too, like the reveal of her being the mastermind behind the hit on Foggy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it, you know, lends itself well to what we were saying too about how we just appreciate more like her being an equal to Wilson as opposed to Wilson's back in the mix. Now Vanessa takes a bit of a backseat or side seat to what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
It helped drive home that like she can be as impactful as he can in terms of like shaking the system up a little bit and getting her hands dirty.
Mm-hmm.
She's not just an extension of him. Like she's
Yeah, she
a
can
bit of a
act
wild
in
card
this
too.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a part of this world.
Yeah, so I thought that was important for her character, and another reason why this episode was better than the rest of the bunch. But it's still, like you preface, like it still wasn't a great episode. It
Mm-hmm.
felt very drawn out until just leading up to that moment they had planned at the end with the gala and the tension ramped up until Bullseye takes a shot and Matt jumps in the way. So yeah, it just the end of the day, it a lot of it still felt like filler,
Yeah.
regardless.
Yeah.
And I mean, Gallo kind of seals his fate in this episode too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
He's making some decisions that definitely put him on the outs, and Fisk is bound to hear about that. I mean, he's got too many years in the room. Like, at least go to like a secluded spot to have that conversation. But he's
Yeah.
just like casually talking to BB about the insubordination, and like that's the last guy you want to know that you've been insubordinate.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well for you. So I don't know if you realized that, but he had to have been feeling the heat, right?
Yeah, I think at that point he was just done with this. He couldn't
He
take like
needed
his
some other way to
ethics
stop
took
him. So it was,
over. Yeah.
yeah, he was very willing at that point to like share with BB like the true stuff.
Yeah.
If you needed
Like if you're actually gonna
the scoop,
blow the whistle on this guy.
yeah, I can corroborate
I
your story or whatever as
yeah.
the head of police.
Yeah.
And yeah, by saying that, he's sealed his fate.
Yeah.
When that gets back to Fisk, he kind of has no choice but to stop him in his tracks.
Yeah.
Terminate him.
He's dead. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you could tell they were setting up in this episode for like whatever the kind of big bang at the end. But we can move on to that here now. So at this point, we've made it to the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably expecting, some big cap off to the story, especially given what we've seen, where there's like, it's so discombobulated that's like, how could they possibly end this in a way that seems satisfying?
Mm-hmm.
The deck was stacked against them in that regard, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But similar to some like high points in previous episodes, this episode definitely had like some saving grace to it, but overall, like the same kind of pattern of like looking at it as a whole, I wasn't satisfied after it for many reasons. But in terms of like the positives that came out of it, um, I mean, this was just like the culmination of Matt and Fisk, essentially, right?
Yes and no. I mean, they literally do not interact in this episode whatsoever.
They don't. Yeah, I guess
Personally,
Fisk sends the hit out on Matt. What a scummy thing to do, too, while he's in the hospital recovering. Like, what a piece of shit.
yeah,
It just didn't seem very in character for Fisk, for a guy that's like, especially with the history that they've shared. I just figured he's like, I want my fucking hands on
yeah,
this guy.
yeah.
I
There's
want
no
to
way you're gonna
break
ice
him.
him like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just didn't seem
in
in the
character.
spirit of Kingpin. Yeah,
Yeah, no, you're
especially
right.
with
I hadn't
what
even
he
considered that.
did to
But
Gallo
yeah,
in this episode. Like, if
a much
anything,
less personal relationship.
right, just this guy who's undermining his ability to get his plan done
Yeah,
in the city, not a guy who he's sparred with for years,
yeah.
who took everything away from him, as he was reflecting on that with Buck there, being like, this guy looms large in my head. I want my revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Given what he did to Adam, who was like a modicum of that impact on him, and
Yeah,
how long
barely
he
like.
toiled with that.
Yeah.
So it just, yeah, didn't feel respectful of like what they built up between those two characters, for him to just be like, oh yeah, well, he's recovering in the hospital at his weakest, most vulnerable state. Let me take him out now. That's like something that like, well, I could see Vanessa doing that, because she
Yeah.
would play that. That's much more in character in the way that she would play that. She's not physically capable of taking on Matt, but Fisk is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, another missed opportunity there in my eyes, especially for a finale.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
again,
finale is a tough word to use for this
it's more like a
episode. There
mid-season
was
finale.
no finality to it
No,
at all. It was, again, like it's this pattern of setup episode, intrigue episode, setup episode, intrigue episode, and the final episode was a setup episode.
for like the next season,
Yeah. Which,
taking on Fisk,
like I said earlier, I
building
honestly
Ryan.
hope doesn't happen. I'd
I mean, how
rather
cool would
they
it have been
don't
if it
further
was
tarnish this.
that last shot was like the fucking Defenders coming together in the diner there in Josie's diner?
Oh, that wouldn't have been
That,
cool at all.
huh?
That wouldn't have been cool. I probably would have
You would have
smashed
liked
the TV if I
that.
saw that. Yeah, that would be awful.
I kind of thought that's where his speech, his like narrative speech, was leading to, about like building up, a resistance to Trump's stranglehold on the city.
Trump's.
Trump. Did I just say Trump?
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, we talked about this season being reflective of real world politics. That slips out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, yeah, again, I don't know how. I guess I would have conflicted feelings about that, especially with what we've talked about, with some things feeling just like fan service and just giving it to us for the sake of like a satisfying connection to the previous material. So yeah, maybe it would have come off more as that for sure.
Mm.
It just seemed like kind of an underwhelming crew at the end
Fucking
to take
Cherry
on
and what's the cop's name? The negotiator?
Kim, Agent Kim or something.
Kim.
I'm pretty sure her name was, but is that, she's probably going to become something more
Yeah.
integral,
Yeah, there's something looming there.
like a valuable shield type agent, like a Maria Hill style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, and then like Punisher stuff. Like I was, the kind of suicide mission he decided to go on. to confront his the Punisher clowns at the port there.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking badass.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he just went there with like a battle axe and was like, yeah, I'm gonna take on this crew of 30 plus guys.
Yeah.
That was fucking sick. And I was like, damn, like they're gonna kill him. This is the end of Frank Castle. Like this is the way he goes out trying to defend like his image and protect like yeah, he's a troubled man, but at the end of the day, like he's in it for the right
Yeah.
reasons.
He has his moral code.
Yeah. So just that's like going out fighting against literally like the antithesis of what his symbol means.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was like such a fitting end. So I was like obviously concerned and starting to be like sad at the reality of like he's this is the end of his character. And then when they didn't do that, I just like I was angry
Yeah.
because I was almost excited for it to happen in a way. Like I just felt like that's like a way this character should go out. This fucking 1 on 30 suicide mission where
Mm-hmm.
he's fighting for the right thing right till the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and the implication of that would be like imagine he takes out almost the entire task force, or maybe he takes out the entire task force and dies doing that. And then there goes Fisk's, you know, firm hand and
Yeah, his
his control.
strategic reserve of guys that'll ask no questions and
Yeah,
carry out his orders
yeah.
without much thought.
And then he's crippled going into the next season, but we also lose Frank Castle. Yeah, that would have been a very good way to tie things up.
I would have loved that, man. Like, yeah, and then it's like you're taking risks too. Like, you're not afraid to like bring this character back, and then if that was the reason, right? That feels like a good reason at the end of the day, despite like it feeling a little forced when he first showed up in the season, where it's like, is this just like a way to like, we had to come up with a way to get Punisher in the mix here.
Mm-hmm.
If you kill him, it just that feels that's more justified in my mind, and I can give you more of a tip of the cap to like bringing back that character in a meaningful way
Mm-hmm.
and providing some finality to that story instead of it being like, oh well, they were using non-lethal ammunition and his whole plan was to like go there to get captured, to get inside or whatever. But that's not as compelling as me to like this is his final suicide mission. What
Mm-hmm.
I explained before, like I just feel like that's the end that Frank Castle deserves.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's like Jon Snow running into the Battle of the Bastards there, except Littlefinger isn't there to save him. Like he
Yeah,
he
yeah. If John
does.
had died in that, I mean, the show would have been completely different. But
Yeah, it would have been a
it was a
fitting
damn
end.
good episode. But that would have been like an unbelievable episode of television if they had have killed Jon
Mm-hmm.
Snow there.
And that's the thing. Those are the kind of risks that Game of Thrones took, and that's why people love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They do a shamefully poor recreation of those methods in this with Hector Ayala, and well, they did it well with Foggy. I'll give them that. That
Mm-hmm.
was very emotional and
Absolutely.
definitely came out of nowhere. It was surprising to get rid of him. But beyond that, it's just failed uses of this tactic.
Yeah, and Hector Ayala's death is way less impactful than Frank's would have been.
Yeah, yeah, completely irrelevant by the end of the season.
And same with Gallo in this episode. Like his brutal, gruesome death. Like, yes, there's shock factor there because a fist just like crushed his head like a watermelon,
Mm-hmm.
but that death is just doesn't falls flat compared to like you not killing Frank.
Yeah, that doesn't send a message. Killing Frank would send a message to the viewer, not to.
Not just getting rid of one more person off Fisk's shit list that could like throw a wrench into him amassing the amount of power and influence he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did like the the sequence in the apartment, like Matt's apartment too, when Punisher, like he gets back to his apartment after he flees the hospital there, and Frank's there, and they have their little conversation before the kill squad comes and shakes things up. I did like he was wearing like a leather duster jacket in that
Yeah,
scene, and it was just very like reminiscent
comic
of like
accurate.
other iterations of Punisher. So I did appreciate that because I'm not I was trying to rack my brains whether we've seen him in like a
At,
foot length duster kind
at
of
the
jacket
end
like
of
that.
Punisher season 2, but it was just like a short. It was like an end credit clip.
Okay,
But yeah.
but either way, yeah, that's I mean that's not really doesn't add much value. It's just kind of they've always been catered to like authenticity of the character, right? So it's
Mhm.
just nice to see those little touches. Um, but yeah, that definitely gets lost in the sea of inconsistent
Yeah,
storytelling
it
and
can't save the episode.
no.
Yeah, I mean, overall, just looking at the series as a whole, like, bad, awful.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you.
Yeah,
Some small moments of goodness in
yeah,
there, but
moments
just
that make it entertaining
mm,
to watch, but nothing that makes it compelling or good.
no. And it kind of hurts more because it's like you, as we've discussed, like there's definitely pieces in there that they could have used in a better way to tell a better story,
Mm-hmm.
but it just didn't play out that way. So it's just like that disappointment, right? Like you had opportunities to go in a direction that would have been more compelling or entertaining or satisfying, but it just felt like you kept brushing that right path off and taking the one that's just not adding anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kept it just kept being like, no, we'll get to the good stuff later. Like, just sit through this garbage and
You know what?
we'll
Let's
get
do
to it.
another whole 9 episodes. To let's just shift this, put this the real end of the story on the back burner, and just
Yeah.
have this as a like I was saying. This felt much more like a mid-season finale. Like it's just half of something bigger, I guess, which is
Mm-hmm.
clear at the end. But problem is, I'm not excited to see what happens next because of how big of a shitstorm that was.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing how excited we were for this coming out originally versus how much disdain we have for the season 2.
Really flipped on its head after Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just the anticipation of the character too, like Charlie Cox going to bat for it and kind of like helping to green light the revival of it and it turning out the way it did. It's got to be like I wonder if there's some disappointment on their end too, where they had a different vision at the start and seeing it come together the way it did. I just wonder if they're proud of it or if they can understand where we're coming from, just like laying into the nonsense of it all.
I know. I hope they don't lean into critic reviews too much cuz I don't know why it's getting so much praise on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and
Fisk is paying someone off.
yeah, it seems like it because it's bad from a storytelling perspective, from an objective perspective, from two people who are obsessed with this content, this
That's the
universe.
thing. We're so
We're
primed
so
to like this,
biased.
anyways. So it's kind of incredible that it was we have this kind of reaction to it because we're. It's almost like we were inherently like wanting to like this going into it, right? And the first
Yeah,
episode was like, "Holy shit, this is like they got
we're
something here."
sold. Yeah,
And then it's like one episode after another. It's like we're looking at each other with like just wondering like what the fuck is happening?
yeah, yeah.
Like where the fuck are they going with things? Like just nothing
And
feels
that's
cohesive.
every Marvel thing right now, right? Like that's the primary issue is everything that comes out doesn't matter to the next thing that comes out, which is a total 180 from phase 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
every fucking piece of cinema that came out added something to the larger story until we cultivated in Avengers Age of Ultron and subsequently Infinity War and Endgame, but they have just done nothing across the shows or the movies, anything
I guess.
recently to show us that like there's something to look forward to. Like you can promote Fantastic Four or Avengers Doomsday as much as you want. I have zero faith because nothing I've seen has led me to believe that they're building towards something compelling.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they've laid the groundwork that they did with Phase One, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Doomsday just feels like it's gonna be just a mess of trying to fit as many characters into the story as possible, which like you could argue was kind of the case for the Avengers or Infinity War or Endgame, but like they had built up to it in such a way that it made sense and it provided some finality to like this overarching stories of multiple characters where now it just feels like there's everything's so convoluted and like the way they try to connect things to make it make sense is feels like forced a lot
Or
of the
just a
time like we've
failure
seen or a
completely.
failure a complete misstep. So yeah, it just I don't know, it's maybe it's just a matter of like they were able to bottle up some magic back then with the first phase and made a lot of money off that, figured they had people in their pocket, an audience in their pocket, and just start putting out lower quality, more quickly produced to get just quantity of projects out there, theatrical releases, Disney stuff, shorts, like just bombard people with content
Mm-hmm.
and hope that your allegiance from phase one persists through these abysmal fucking projects that we've seen in the last year, 2 years.
Oh, way longer than that.
I mean, honestly, since the end of
Since Endgame, they haven't
Endgame, the snowball
produced
started.
something that's above average.
Yeah. And some stuff that's just bottom of the barrel. Like I thought Thor the Dark World was bad. Thor the Dark World looks like a Scorsese
Oh my
film
god, yeah.
compared to
I
like
would
Secret
watch that movie on repeat now. Secret Invasion.
yeah, Secret.
Yeah,
I already forgot the title of it.
yeah.
Yeah, demoralizing as like a someone who wants to like this stuff. And
Did for
Daredevil
so
was like
long.
I was banking on that being sort of like a rejuvenating my
Yeah,
optimism for the MCU, but it's just solidified.
what you already thought.
Yeah,
What
my
you didn't want
feeling
to
of
admit,
I'm gonna
maybe.
distance myself from this even further, and
Yeah.
definitely not paying to go see anything in theaters. Like
Well, it was
I'll
funny. Like Thunderbolts, I actually was thinking about maybe we go see in theaters because it's been so long since we've seen a Marvel movie in theaters. But shit like this, it's yeah. Like I don't even want to waste my free movie tickets on that. Like
yeah. Well, with all things considered, like if you were to give Daredevil a rating based on
like
the scale system we have set up that we've used for previous movies, like previous podcasts, you have like
oh, it's Wake Up for sure. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna put it in the worst
wake up.
category. A because I'm biased and B I'm biased as well. um, but yeah, like there was a few redeeming moments, and like we said, there was things that made it entertaining to watch, but nothing that gave it quality.
Mm-hmm.
Like a poorly designed story, a poorly told story, well acted, but couldn't replace what the lack of substance that was in that. Like, just wake up.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm completely 100% with you there. In fact, like, it's very close to teetering on the edge for me of in that last
Mm-hmm.
category, the bottom of the barrel. But Wake Up is like, yeah, given that episode one was like pretty great and it set up pieces that they could have used for a more compelling story. And then throughout the episodes, the high points that we touched on and stuff that gave it a little more credibility. I would say, yeah, I can more firmly agree with you and put it in Wake Up. Like there was, hey, like that's actually a perfect descriptor for it because it's like wake up in terms of you kept making these wrong decisions story wise. Like
Yeah.
in retrospect, I hope you realize that it could have been as simple as just like let's take a harder look at our story and where it's going here.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, that's it's down there for sure. It is. I'm not satisfied with it whatsoever. So tough showing.
Yeah, wake up, MCU.